Hello, this is my basic guide to split. I'm going to go with defense first. I'm going to start off with the defensive positions. So generally, you're going to see something like a 1-2-1-1. However, the A positions are going to vary a lot more than these ones are. The reason why is because there's plenty of nice angles on A that also play around the important thing on this map, which is playing around the traps on the map and the important defensive points. So generally, the important defensive points to hold are going to be A heaven, and B heaven. These two areas are very important for the defense to hold, because it simply stops a split from happening onto the site from both sides. Generally, B heaven is a bit more valuable for attacking B than A heaven is. However, A heaven is really valuable on the retake, so therefore teams tend to take this, or teams want to take this anyway. In solo queue, I don't think solo queue is like caught up, and seems that most of the time we don't take this when we definitely should be, because it is a very strong position, like I said, for retake. Right, we can see this. On B, you can say technically you can see this too, but generally it has a bit more implication for the actual execute as well than A main does, also than A heaven does. However, it is still nice to have this when you are executing A. However, it's not quite as important. It's more important to just generally be fighting it. So you're going to be maybe sitting ramp with one player to fight players in this area, more so than actually taking the space. So the reason why we have like these type of positions on defense, so the stuff like this, right, that I went over just, is because there's general like trap positions that you can get on this map that are very important to play around. So these trap positions are this sort of square here, generally B main. Oh, sorry, B heaven. Sorry, I don't know why I keep calling the main. B heaven. And then we have this sort of area here. And we have this area here, this square here. So these four areas are going to be important places for you to trap. There is technically as well a mid one here. But that one's a bit harder to use. As it's like requires maybe a bit more coordination with like Raze and Sky. And you're going to have to like push out, be fragging them as well. But here, these traps are very much easier traps to execute with, as they are a bit more passive. Like the enemy team will walk into the traps, more so than you will have to like engage in this trap. It's more like you are engaging like fairly equally, because they'll beat you to this position. They'll technically get there first, but then you're kind of like moving into that position usually with like a Raze satchel and Raze ult really. So this trap play isn't as strong, or at least isn't as easy. Sorry. Maybe even it probably is a bit stronger on select rounds, but these ones are fairly easy to use, as these are like good flash zones. So you may notice there are plenty of open areas where the enemy team can't really tuck anywhere to live if they get flashed. So someone on site will be able to punish this one. Someone in main in heaven, like either this position or even rafters, will be able to punish anyone in this box here. Maybe not so much. Maybe not really counting this little area here. Usually just like in this open area like this. And then on B main, B heaven, sorry, this area here, and then I already went over those. Sorry. So yeah, that's like the traps of this map. That defense are going to be playing around quite a bit. And then I'll just quickly talk about the mid rotation. So this is the mid rotation that a lot of people will be trying to defend when they put up a sage wall, like this, like this one. However, this sage wall sucks. I'm not going to go over it right now. It sucks a lot of the time. I went over it in my how to use sage wall guide on Split maybe about a week back, or maybe a bit longer. So basically, the point of this wall is to allow for this mid rotation. That's what it is in ranked, right? Because they don't do it in pro, right? The reason why they don't do it in pro is because it's not very good. There's a lot more things they can do on a coordinated level that can do this. Even on a non-coordinated level, there are better plays than this. However, people haven't caught up, really. But generally, this mid rotation is quite strong for defense. However, attack, if they want mid, they can definitely take it eventually. So it is quite, as long as they like commit enough util to taking it, they can take it. So it's not always going to be a possibility to use this as a mid rotation. It is pretty good when you can. So for instance, if they do like a full send A, and that's their strat, right? Then the male players can, or the male and the like B heaven players can do fast rotation through. You'll see that actually a lot on like pistol rounds. even in pro, right? Because they very rarely actually go mid. At least what I remember. Actually, I could be completely wrong on that. But what I remember is they very rarely go mid. Definitely could be wrong. But generally they're able to get this mid rotation, and it's really strong. It's the fastest rotation, right? Because without this mid rotation, they have to go all the way around through CT, and it's really bad. One other thing to note about this mid rotation is that generally you can defend it quite early with a smoke here, and then eventually they'll use util to take it, and then attack will control this area. And this is important as we're going to move on to attack now. And we're going to explain why attack want this area, and like what attack's goals are on this map. Okay, so on attack, we'll talk about the important positions to take. First one is going to be mid, and then there's going to be A heaven and B heaven. You may notice that mid is connected to these heavens, right? Which means that taking mid is like a really good step in, first of all, limiting a mid rotation. And second of all, in the second point of what we want to be doing in this map is info starve, but I'll go over that in a second. And right now, the important parts of the map are going to be A heaven and B heaven, as they allow you to split onto the site. And they also allow you to play retake from two nice positions. Especially it allows you to get this open plant on B, it allows you to get this open plant on A. If you control A heaven, you get to split on A, and you also get a good place to play retake from. As you get, simply put, you can ban the bomb if they're trying to defuse. It's really hard for them to play out the round, basically. Really hard for them to play the retake. And so mid is important for this, right? Because it's connected, so we can actually split on these heaven areas, right? At least on A anyway. On B, we can't necessarily split on there, and we actually will be going into a trap most likely. There might be an off-angle player here. There might be a player here ready for the flash. Player close, player here. So it is quite hard to take B heaven. When you can, it's really strong. Generally, you're going to have some influence from B main as well. So it makes positions like this a lot worse to play in when they don't have control of B main. It also makes any really rafter position really hard to play when they have control of B main and are going out B main. So in a genuine split, this is still fine, and it's still very takeable for attack. Other important positions we may want to have, or we definitely want to have on attack, is going to be these two positions here, A main and B main. So the two mains are really important to have. Not so much because they allow us to go places. Obviously, they will allow us to go B and they will allow us to go A. It's one half of the split, right? But the more important thing about them is actually that it allows us to info starve the enemy team. So it makes the mid position stronger when we can info starve these two positions. The reason why it does that is because they don't know where we're going, right? They don't know if there's any players here. They don't know if there's any players here. And obviously, if they could see this area, then they may get their answer in where the mid players are actually going to go, right? That's the question the defense are going to be asking. They'll be like, where are my team? Where is the enemy team going to go from mid? And if they had information in the mains, this could answer that question for them, right? So for instance, you might see sometimes on like ecos, for instance, people are going to push the main early on, propose etc. are going to like influence this and push it and things. Not even on ecos, just in general. If they have like certain amount of util. The reason why they do that is because if they don't see anyone, it becomes very obvious on this map where the mid players or the mid pressure is going to go, if there's any. And we can kind of identify that they're probably going to be in the opposite main quite easily, really, on this map. So yeah, and then we're going to go on to like sort of info starving. So the way that this is sort of done on attack is generally on like solo queue, you'll probably see a cypher put a cage here, or you might have like an omen smoke here early on. Obviously, this looks like an attack smoke, right? Sorry, a defense smoke, but you can use this on attack just to take this main really slow. Generally, you can like lurk here maybe as an omen, or maybe you can do it as Astra as well. This is also quite strong. So this is like allowing you to kind of build up some rounds where you could do it solo some rounds, and then you can use it to like take B main very slowly as a team the next round. And you know, as soon as this smoke goes down, you can like pop into B. So that sort of stuff can work. You may also see in pro as well that you'll see like a toxic screen across like this. And this just allows the Viper to walk up into ramp and get to a very unpredictable position, such as this one, which I think Yosemite did this. in one of Billy games. Billy. Oh my god, I can't speak. Billy's games. Oh my god, that's hard to say. Okay, so that's like sort of info starving and map rotations. What it allows you to kind of do. This like the default Viper wall allows the Viper to lurk, or it allows her to just go somewhere else, and it's starving A main and it's starving ramp. So the enemy team, the defensive team don't actually know where the attacking team is, right? With this Viper wall, let me just make things a bit clearer. With this Viper wall, the enemy team don't have a clue what's going on in these areas, and sometimes they might even be forced, if you're playing especially slow in mid, they might be forced to go and take this area with util. Sometimes, if they have enough players towards A, they might decide that they want to flash through here and try and take some space away from... Usually it probably wouldn't be heaven, actually. It probably would be main if they decide to make a play like that. But yeah, generally it might force players to like try and find info aggressively. Especially if they have a sky or something, they probably don't need to. Or if they have they won't have Sova on this map. But if they had like a sky, maybe even a fade on this map sometimes, then they might be trying to look for info, and you might be able to get some util out the way for them defending the actual take of the site, right? For instance, if you time it correctly, the haunt might be down because they might have tried to find info on you early on in the round, and then you can use that to your advantage. Okay, so I'm going to move on to like avoiding traps for attack. And so the trap plays that are going to be made are going to be around here, right? Most of these, if not all of them, are like flash zones that I think I've already said on the defense, right? That if an attacker gets flashed in this zone, it's really hard for them to actually get into cover and get away and not die. So these are really important zones to be aware of as attackers, that you don't want to be flashed in this position, otherwise you're probably going to be dying. This position in particular is the odd one out. The reason why is because the defense will actually have to go aggressive to trap this zone. And I also want to explain this zone, even though it's actually not that likely for it to actually be occur in your games. The reason why is because it allows me to explain this concept, which is if the enemy team have taken some zone, some space, right? Because normally when you're attacking mid on split, the enemy team are going to be populating around this area, like they're going to be populating like male and B heaven, and they're going to be populating vents towards like A heaven, right? And in the event they go aggressive in this sort of zone, trap you here, not really exactly trap you here, but like to kill you in this zone, then they're going to be populating front mid. And this means that you have, well, like kind of like this area, right? And then they're going to be contacting off these players in these positions, right? But generally, the way we want to think about this is that we will have to use multiple sets of util to actually get onto site, and generally be one more than we actually want to use through mid, right? So generally, the winning play versus this trap, if they decide to go super aggressive mid, the winning play can sometimes just be to play slow through mid. You crunch this area quite slowly, so they don't actually control this area. And then we can just sit there, and not really sit there, but we can like kind of like be slightly proactive, kind of looking for maybe a bit of a fight, but don't actually commit too much. And we can buy time for a potential lurk on A or B to get a kill. Or we can simply use a set of util to retake the space if we really want to, if we think that's actually the viable option. But once again, we are using one more set of util, or like one more layer of util is what I mean. Say not really set, but layer of util. So you can see like we're using 3 layers of util to get into B, and then we're also using probably about 4 layers of util to get into A. Actually, maybe not so much this one. This may just be one full arrow. Honestly, you can kind of use the same layer of util here. So maybe it's like 3 or 4 arrows here, 3 or 4 layers here, 2 or 3 layers here, and it can make it quite difficult if you have to use this extra layer here. Is what I'm basically trying to say. So if you do get trapped here, you want to be looking for an alternative play most of the time. From even grouping up and going straight B main could be a play too. Just not using too many sets of util or too many layers of util, sorry, to get out through mid. It might not be worth it if they make that trap play. Something I just want to explain. I don't think it really is going to come up a huge amount in your games in this in particular position, but it may be relevant in some other maps. For instance, in Fracture, even though it's rotating out, and that can be relevant if they decide to take A main, right? For instance, it might not be worth going straight A main, using all your util to take it, when you could maybe get a lurk in another position, and then use that to either let people rotate out of A main, so then it's easier to take A main, or maybe they can like, or maybe you can just rotate, right? That's what the concept kind of is, right? That you're looking for potential like fights elsewhere, and looking for like either rotation or yeah. I don't think I need to over-explain. I think I already have over-explained that, to be honest. So moving on, we'll look at the heavens next. So B heaven. Usually you're going to have like some sort of crossfire around here. You're going to have like a flash play with some players in these type of positions. And the way to break this, or the way to stop this from happening, is if you're playing Raze, you can do nays like this, or Raze like nays like this and this. That we're going to break this crossfire and allow you to walk in. There's also off angle here, but I'll get to that in a second as well. If you're playing like Jet or Chamber, what pro players tend to do, or what pro teams, tend to do, is that when they note that there is quite a lot of pressure here from defense, what they'll do is they'll actually send their Jet or a Chamber, and they'll fight this position for a bit, and then they'll dash out and cancel into an A hit. And what it does is that the Jet or the Chamber fighting here usually pulls over a player from A main, from this trap here, and it allows them to move into this trap a lot more freely. So this is sort of working both the traps, or like both the strong positions for defense. These are also really strong flash positions, so you don't want to be caught in like this sort of area being flashed. So to mitigate that, smokes are generally really strong here to try and stop that, but it's not always a very foolproof solution. The way to really stop this trap properly is once again to like use nade if you have access to Raze. You can also do dashes in, but it isn't that strong in this position. Generally, you want to use the dashes into B or into A. You don't want to be using them this early, because it's a lot stronger, like explosive executes, than it is when you have multiple players potentially looking at you, in like some random like positions where you can't get traded, right? So the way to break this kind of like setup is that the Raptors player is actually susceptible to anyone walking out B main. So you might want to get a player, a lurk, or even like multiple like players. Like maybe you want the bulk of your push to be from B main, and it will force this Raptors player to jump away, or to get away some way, or to fight you in B main. So these players here can actually fight one player instead, or fight one player and then technically a pressured Raptors player from B main. So that's how you kind of break this setup here. Well, if you want to break the A setup, unfortunately, the map geometry doesn't really favour you. The vents can be quite awkward to get out of with this tight corridor. So generally, you want to be splitting on them. So by splitting on them, you probably want to have a player pressuring this player. So the reason why this is strong, right, this area is strong, is because this player exists on defense, right? And they can fire from here, they can fire here, and they can also swing and fight ramp. So they've got plenty of options. So the way to stop this is to neuter this player. So what you want to do is you want to be sending a lot of util potentially at this player. You want to have a player from A main to walk up and pressure that player, or you want to have a split from ramp and here, and that can really force this player into a bad position. It can force this player into a bad position. It's really strong that way. Really strong to like split on heaven first. Even like a blast pack from main, like behind this player, is really strong to break this type of trap. Generally, you won't even see players in ranked utilize this area very well. So yeah, that's kind of like how you do things in A heaven. On B main, this is generally like a flash hotspot once again. So we want to make sure we're not like caught out in the open as much. But generally, the best two ways here is to either limit the amount of util that's up here. So usually you're gonna have a sentinel here, like a killjoy or a Raze, killjoy or a cipher. So generally, you can use agents like Raze to break the util. So that's the reason what you'll see Raze a ton on split, right? And this is one of the reasons why, is because she's really good at breaking the crossfires. She's really good at breaking these traps in general, right? You can just break these traps and dismantle them a lot easier than Jet can, right? Because Jet generally has her mobility and things. She's really strong when she can go straight into a site. But the problem is, in this map, it's really hard to go straight into a site because you need to take the heavens first. Or it's really strong to take the heavens first anyway. So that's the reason why you have Raze, is because Raze can do the dash isn't the same thing that breaks the trap, if that makes sense, because she can break the trap with Boombot, she can break the trap with nade, and then she can blast satchel or blast back into the site, right? That's kind of how, that's the reason why you want Raze more than you want Jet on this map. And for B main is generally mobility is really strong as well, getting over these traps. Also, I don't think the Sage is, this wall is also kind of maybe, I mean, maybe it is a bit overrated actually, but I think it's pretty decent, right? As opposed to this wall that I don't like. I think this wall is completely fine. The reason why is just breaks this line of sight that they might have if this smoke, because with the smoke, right, you can put a smoke here and it can block this, but then it doesn't block people then here. And to be fair, you'll never block people then here. Or you can do a smoke like this, and then they can push it into rafters and still see you. So I don't really mind this wall to like block line of sight for people going across the wall. I actually think it's pretty good because it can break the multiple lines of sight they'll have on you, which is in efforts really does break the trap, because then it's only one angle to really worry about, or like one like direction to really worry about, until you get to like this position where you need to worry about this and this. But generally, yeah, I mean, you can spam this anyway, or you can nade it and things like that, right? There's plenty of things you can do if the backside, very, very weak position for defense in general. So the next one and final thing we'll talk about. There's a couple ways you can kind of stop this trap. Generally, you'll have like the defense, sorry, will have like a flash on here, maybe like a loud Satak would play breach here, or plays breach here, and would flash this, and then they would have a player up here and a player here that is going to punish, right? So this player punishes this, and this player is going to punish like this, right? This sort of section, and it's really, really strong, right? So how do we avoid this? We can avoid it by using our mobility to get onto rafters. We can use it by using maybe a Viper, in particular a Viper orb here. The reason why, even though it allows for free rotations and can get this player off the site for free, even though it does allow for that, it will stop players from making plays with the flashes from screens. It can still allow them to spam, obviously. So Harbour Cove sometimes is used here as well. You'll see sometimes some players will used to play Harbour on split and would do these type of orbs that would allow them to sort of get onto site without being spammed from screen, at least instantly. And players can't really make plays at this smoke because it's going to be, if it is a Viper orb, right, they don't really get actively decayed so much before they make a play, because it only takes one person playing anti-flash to stop them in their tracks when they make that play. So generally, like a Viper smoke here is quite good, and just generally like mobility is also really strong here. Having flashes sight, like Omen Paranoias, or just general flashes, breach flashes through this wall can disrupt this player. So yeah, stuff like that is really strong. Obviously, we've already talked about it tons, but having a split is going to be really strong. If you can get into this A heaven area, then splitting into this area is going to completely nullify this trap, especially if you can get control of CT and screens, and then you can flank like that. It's going to nullify this trap completely. So stuff like that is going to be really strong to do. Okay, so that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. So yeah, I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.